Uh, Mr. Mihalovich, state present, thank you. Mr. Nowacki,
Present.
Mr. Sheebly,
Present.
Mr. Frigo,
Present.
and Chair Arbusius.
Present.
Thank you.
Order of business, has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? Opposed? It's been a while since we've had a zone. Zoning Board of Appeals functions so. Zoning ordinances cannot change or ignore any part of this ordinance or the state. Process for?
Sure. Each hearing will be opened by reading the application notice by the chair. Staff may provide a description of the premises if requested. The applicant will be sworn in and then present the reasons and evidence to support why they think they meet the standard for the variance. The board may ask questions of the zoning staff and applicant. Witnesses will be sworn in and allowed to give testimony related to why the variance should or should not be granted. Once the board has all the facts, the chair will close the hearing, and the board will deliberate and decide in front of the public whether the applicant has met the standard for a variance. The board will then proceed to the next hearing.
Discussion and necessary action on the request from petition. W305 N 2658 Ravine Court, Milwaukee, 53072. Building location, offset on the town zoning code, which requires 30 feet minimum for all other buildings or structures. Request is to retain a 460-foot from the side of the lot line and 4 feet inches of overall. All other buildings or structures. Request is to retain an acceptable. Note that we do have 3 letters of public comment received via
And just a point of clarification on the setback. The setback request is actually 8.25 inches greater than what their setback actually is or where the structure is, and that is because the structure doesn't meet the overall height. But this board does not decide overall height variances. That is a plan commission decision. But the only way to get that height is to have further setbacks. So we've added that 8.25 inch variance to allow for that if they choose to appeal through the plan commission, if this board would deem it appropriate. So. You want to stand up here and Yeah, if you could just raise your right hand and swear that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I swear to tell the whole truth,
Thank you.
nothing but the truth.
So, to answer your question, you are on the Board of Appeals tonight for a height variance to the eave. We require a 12-foot eave height, and you're at 19 feet. But your overall height exceeds the height of the zoning code by 8¼ inches. So in order to get the variance for the overall height, that's not something this board determines, that's what the Plan Commission determines. And I think we had a discussion about this before. So in order to meet that setback, we need an additional 8¼ inches of setback to allow for that height. In which then the Plan Commission could vote to approve the height variance, but if you don't have the setback variance, then they couldn't do it because you need additional setback in order to have additional height in our zoning code.
Okay,
And
One has to be approved before.
correct.
okay. Thank you for your clarification on that.
And just as this is your time to speak to, if you have evidence that you want to produce to show your variance or your hardship to the board. And if you could state your name and address for the record as well.
My name is Matthew Mason. My address is 907 West Moreland Boulevard. That is in Waukesha, Wisconsin. I would like to thank you guys for gathering here today on behalf of this matter. I would like to get a request for hardship for variance based on the topography of the land. From my understanding, some of you individuals have visited the land. The land itself has a lot of various height changes. Just to even access her property, she needed an easement granted from her neighbor just to allow access to her property because the property wouldn't allow a driveway to properly access her property without that easement. So with all these different topography changes, this is the main reason why we would like to have this building in this location with these setbacks. From my understanding, I spoke with neighbors. I did not get the information that you said on denials. I spoke with neighbors that had all approvals. They had discrepancies based off of the height, and they wanted the roof to look symmetrical. That was based off the direct neighbor that is going to be affected by this variance. I guess that's most of the information I would like to talk about to you and tell you about exactly today on behalf of the variance that we're requesting.
I'm not sure if you're not familiar with the plan. Could that building have been closer to the main? Would be
To bring the, so you were looking at 39.7 and then decreasing that width from the building to the actual shed?
removing.
Yeah, that's closing that 39. That is that allows for enough room, that 39 allows for enough space for a vehicle, just enough to swoop in. If you would look on that wall, that asphalt is on, that 40.6 feet wall is a garage, and to turn and swoop into the garage, it requires about that distance. So when she backs out, she's almost backing up to the shed and then turning her wheels to exit her driveway. So it requires basically just enough. We also know that we were dealing with a certain amount of permeable space and impermeable space, so we were trying to keep it to a bare minimum. In all this project, during this whole project, we took out a vast number of both asphalt and concrete from her home to accommodate the size that we need to have for impervious space. So in that project, we spent over $70,000 just to become into compliance before we would even start this project. And we did all that. And that's another bit of information I'd like to let you know, that we have done things in compliance with what your guys' rules and regulations are. She's had multiple projects on the property themselves. She's never tried to do anything to deviate from any permitting or anything. So I guess that's most of the information I want to present.
Were there any plan? That would have all larger garage or?
We only have 31 feet, so our garage is already 1 foot to a point we can't go build any more. So we can't build any more that way, and then we could like kind of what you're saying would be to reverse, but then again, we would need access to access the other side, which then would require more variance. There is also a door that would have, with a walkway that is on that side of the building, that we would then have to change that whole access to that door with that walkway, which is probably a fire compliance issue. We sought this out to be the easiest and best location based off the topography alone. It's a very, very hilly location.
Or did you speak to them?
The building itself,
For what you're asking for?
building itself, I designed the whole building itself.
For the shed?
Yes,
Yes, for the shed.
yeah.
So did you?
In the middle of the project, we deviated from plans, which then, me in the middle of the project, I did not go back and look at what the restrictions were. I just kind of went into the new plans and started building. So our original plans did not require a height that big. We wanted to get access because we have limited storage on the property of this size, so we wanted the building for all our tooling just to even maintain the property itself. We wanted access to the area above, so we built the roof up a little bit higher, changed the dimensions of the roof to give us access to the upper section of the storage facility. Yes, sir.
That building.
We were looking to store her furniture, outdoor furniture.
How do you, build it? Stairs, or how would you get up there?
We would do similar to what's in her garage is one of those folding staircases that would come down. We wouldn't want to go and build out any more around the property. We did have an access to kind of put things in and out for now because we didn't have any way in. So we do have an access on the back to get in and out to do work, but we wanted to make, we have something in her garage currently that folds down with a ladder, and then you just walk up the ladder with the furniture. Very similar to what she has in her garage currently. Honestly don't have those, and we abandoned those so long ago. I don't have those. But I want to say it's in the 12-foot height regulation, yes. We had a landscaper that was working with the previous building inspector at the time, prior to him, and we had,
Me.
oh, it was, okay.
Me.
It's my understanding this has been, for us, an ongoing project for almost 3 years. We deviated prior to COVID, and then we restarted back when COVID kind of subsided. So a lot of information also was missed in that transition of time. when we ended the project and then started it back up. Yes, sir.
May I ask, what was the purpose for, or the reason for not securing a building
Or not?
or not?
Was Wallach who was our because put in all this non-permitted stuff. We had to develop a plan. Wallach, her job was to figure out the how we were going to structure things so that I thought she was. Electrical work, that's when we found out.
Yeah, step up to the microphone too. Where you will tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do. Mike Hadley, Building Inspector, 1140 West State Street in Hartford. I just have to kind of refute what he was saying about the access and the storage up above. Did you enclose in the packet the pictures that I took? The one rear picture that shows the way up high, where it would be like a doorway. So,
Yeah, it's shown on the plan as a door.
yeah. So the stairs to that door have not been built yet. And based on the span of the joists that are inside the garage right now, they are, I'm pretty sure they're 16 on center, but the joists are undersized for the storage weight. And he presented new structural analysis, and I haven't done thorough review on it yet because we had to get through this process. But my initial review and our discussion together is he was going to be instructed to sister on and double up these 2x6s in order to accommodate the weight for the storage up there. Well, now, now if you're already 16 on center and you got a sister 2x6s, now you're down to under 13 and a half inches, 14 inches. So unless he's gonna present a new plan that shows that being cut out and re-sistered and doubled up to allow for a pull downstairs like you would put in a garage. So I'm just, that's plausible, but at this time, it's not set up for that, so.
Are there any?
No. As Rona mentioned, the electrician pulled a permit for some work to run power out to this accessory structure. And then I was called in for inspection on that. And in the process of doing that inspection, I saw this structure sitting there and looked in the records, and there was no permit pulled for building, zoning, or electrical in that building. The electrician that was hired was only hired to run power from the house to the panel in that accessory structure. So. It was built by him.
I have my own team.
Facilities, two of them being commercial, two of them being residential.
Public comments?
The requirement is because on my first initial visit, determining that it was being built. Depth of this garage, experience, reference right now, but basics can only span so far. That's like, yeah, correct. And that was already, top of that, you throw the fact that now you gotta be storage rated, not.
For the switch.
That's why I made that call.
Concerned about all of the violations. Building inspector. Happens when that goes back.
They would, and mentioned if they, if process and get a building permit. But as Rona said, there was some misconfusion. Talking to who and.
Project is first. Removing of all the concrete. All out again.
There wouldn't have had to been a permit to remove your impervious surface.
Sheds on the property have to be taken. All the concrete and asphalt removed. That's,
I just recall the latest survey that was sent to us
that was back
Dan and
there.
I reviewed was.
And respectfully, the impervious surface comments are in the public discussion of the board.
Built without permits.
Project when they decided. As I recall.
I apologize for being late. I thought it was at 6:30. Then I looked at it, it was 6. I have a question. What is the purpose of the shed? Because I went there and they have another building in front of the shed. Is that a shed or is that a garage?
Attached a garage to the house.
Not the attached. There's a separate building that's across from the attached garage.
That's violating accessory structure, right?
And this shed is behind that
No.
structure.
This is the shed. That's the shed that we're voting on, whether.
Okay, because when I was looking at the photos, okay. Okay.
Would just like to add a comment quickly. Titus Leffel, he there's an email in your packet regarding his stance on the property. He did email me separately just this evening stating he mostly is concerned with the height and not the setback, just so that you have that in the record. The overall height.
The overall height verified by AV.
All right, so you guys are approving the height to the eave, which is, so there's a structure that, the structure goes up and then ends right here, and that's technically the eave. That should be 12 feet, and they have it at 19 feet. And then there's overall height,
The overall height is what we would follow by.
correct.
And if we don't approve,
We're comfortable.
my question.
Both of the. What, did you ever talk to the neighbor?
Okay with the building there? Height is an issue to them. Definitely accommodate that and bring it down. Have to be making decisions. If I can add one more comment is, area has a little bit of a different setback requirement based of your size, and I think if y'all have about a 20-foot setback, and we have to be subject to a 30.
Clarification, the neighbors, the subdivision was platted without that lot as part of the platted subdivision. They were annexed into that subdivision later, so they're zoned A2, the rest of the subdivision is zoned R1. And then most of the property is in the primary environmental corridor as well. So.
Would that be included in the new?
We would get a whole new submittal of.
Variance, then that's the way. Testing that. Yeah.
Otherwise, if you will.
Could we just talk a little bit about the fact that majority of the others have a 20-foot, and they have a 30-foot? Okay, wouldn't we want to be consistent with all of them? Because I don't think it's fair if they have a 30-foot and the others have a 20-foot, that we should penalize them because they are not part of the whatever, newer, older, right?
I'd like to make two. Discussion, any other questions? Both, yes.
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Aye.
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 You guys understand all that then? The setbacks are approved, the height needs to come down. All right. And you can work with Mike on resolving the height issue and getting the proper permits pulled. So, all right, thank you.
On the agenda, discussion and necessary action on request from petitioners Scott and Julie Chapolsky. W28643 Silvernail, copy 53072. Request for a side yard variance from section 17.04H.3 B. To construct an attached garage 14 feet lot line. The property is zoned A-2 and requires a side yard setback. The amount of
We'll now open this for public comment.
yes, yes.
Rather tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do. Again, thanks for being here. I know it's not just for me, but I appreciate the time. We're going through a remodeling process for our house. We initially purchased it because of the property, the size of the property. The house was a ranch, a bit small, and for my wife and I to be able to expand it to what we're a bit more comfortable with. When we started the process back in 2020, we had looked at what we were doing to the house itself, but leaned back on conversations we've had back with Tony Fockler, who was an inspector, in 2015. And that was talking about the size of the garage that existed at the time when they built the house was short, and for us to be able to put a level above it or do anything with it, it would not be high enough to be able to restructure with the joist, the proper joist structuring. So at that point, we always looked at, okay, we're gonna add a garage, an attached garage to the east side of it. From there, when we finally got to this point of building the structure to the house now, we're now going to that next phase of let's put this attached garage on. So as we went for permits and then start dealing with Mike Hadley, and the permits, our architect submitted the drawings, that's when we found that there's a 30-foot offset. So at that point, we went and sat with Dan for a minute, sat with Tim, Actually, I'm sorry, we first worked with Mike, and Mike said, you know, if you wanted to follow the appeal process, that we can do that. And that's when we work with Dan, with Mike, with Tim, and at that point, start looking through what other options do we have on our property. Being a couple, from a hardship perspective, we start looking at, and I hope I could point them all out here, but from a hardship perspective, when we look at the other locations around our house for an attached garage, I apologize. If we look at so right now we're proposing or asking to have the garage to the east side of our house. And if we look at the rear of the house, which would be the south side, the elevational change is too great and we couldn't do an attached garage. If we look at the north side of our house, one, it wouldn't even give us a legitimate radius to turn into the garage or do anything with it, but it's also where our septic line runs and our tank, which is on the other side of our driveway. And then if we look on the east side of our house as an attached garage, the elevation, and again, I don't know 100% of this because Tim had mentioned it, but it's 13.5 degree is the code to be able to, for an incline to drive in, and Tim figured it's a minimum of 15 degrees. I looked at it, it was like, I think I have in here like 17 something when I did my calculation. So we can't even drive up if we tried to put it on the west side, but also we have our well located right there where the drive would go up, and that's also our main entrance to our house. So it kind of leaves us with what option do we have for the attached garage other than which was the original plan, and that was on the east side of the house. Looking at the elevational changes from the topography, you could see on the east side of the house that it's already been, well, it wasn't, I guess it might have been intentionally excavated way before we had the house, but the amount of work and everything that's due, plus how for us, the access point into our house, it makes sense that that's where it goes. So at that point, we're, I guess, here today to determine, from a hardship standpoint, can we have that variance to put a 30-foot attached garage on the east side? One of the caveats I didn't mention was we wanted to look at what type of impact this would have on anybody else, where our property is located, where our house is even located compared to neighbors. The neighbors are 150 feet further up this hill that we live on. Our main, or really only neighbor that would be, for sake of discussion, if anyone, impacted by this structure is the Gasics, which is to the east of us. And we approached them and asked them, do you have any concerns with us putting a garage there, explained it. And simply put, he said, I could barely see your house now. So putting a garage wouldn't make a difference. There's a tree line there, and so on. So we asked him to write a letter and send it into Mike Hadley. And I don't know if that got passed out.
I never received.
No, I don't.
Did he send it to you?
No, I didn't receive anything either. But he did, he was notified though, we notified 300 feet around, so he
Yeah.
didn't submit anything in opposition. Let's say that.
Huh? Did he send it to you?
I didn't receive it. Nope. Double check, but.
Gacek, G-A-C-E-K. E-K. Okay, first name E-K. First name Dave, D-A-V-E. Even sent me,
I apologize. He did send the email. He just sent it in September 5th of 2023, so it was a long time ago.
I'm like, he
But he
sent me a
did-
text saying he did. I
Sorry
hate
about
that.
that. Yeah, he
Yeah,
says
exactly.
this is no.
So maybe it was just
It
you
was
that
just a
he was
long,
sending
long
it to.
time ago, so I
Okay.
had missed it. He just says, "This is Dave Gasek. I live at his address on Silvernail. My neighbor is Scott Kapolsky, and who would like to build a garage next to his house. The purpose of this email is to inform you that this is okay with me. Thank you, Dave." So I apologize. I didn't think to look 6 months back.
Thanks for putting me on the hot spot, Dave.
Well, I'm glad I have my email handy. So
I was gonna have to have a little conversation after. So, but we did approach Dave, both him and his wife, and asked if there's any concerns that they would have with this, and they said, no, of course. And, so that's kind of where I guess it leaves. I know we've had some visit, which I appreciated. Dan had mentioned that we may get someone to come, which I asked, I prefer them to. It's hard to see from a topography, the dynamic of the elevation, what options we do or don't have to put an attached garage on. It's just a lot easier to see when you're standing there. I think that's it. I just know in life, if I don't do something like that, it bites me, so I prefer doing it that way. Mm-hmm.
So it's a 30 garage. Did you consider going deeper on the property?
Right. It's more the width, so driving up, we're gonna pull in like this. If we go deeper, that's great, but it doesn't give us anything from the vehicles pulling into the garage. So adding to the depth is great. I love it.
Made it more narrow, like all door, and then went deeper,
It's more,
less.
right, it's not as much the square footage as we're looking for to be able to pull a car in. And if we go deeper, we can't do it right. So that's really to have cars side by side when it's parked is the purpose of
No,
it.
no, I wasn't asking about the one-car garage. Like, you're kind of bumping door.
Visited the site and the topography on there is a challenge. Utilities set up. Nice there.
Appreciate it.
30 feet.
30.
What is the? Oh, 43 and a half, I believe. before the board. Anyone want to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved?
Second?